Hi, this is Candy from Affordable Bookkeeping and Payroll Services, and I had created a video that I had posted on YouTube that was related to how to claim the Employee Retention Tax Credit, and I had given instructions on filling out the worksheet and the 941. I just had someone ask how to calculate what is available for the Ertc credit and what needs to be retained for the PPP. So I want to show you two examples of spreadsheets that we have used to help calculate the Employee Retention Tax Credit. This first one is actually a spreadsheet that was sent to me by someone who watched my video and wanted us to help him do his 941X calculations for the quarters that he qualified for. So he had already created this format. He'd already determined his PPP wages and then what could be used. And then we did file that, but I wanted to show you this format as well. So as you can see, he has his total wages here. His columns total up from his employees, and of course I've blacked out names to protect them. But in this period, he has what each individual person had earned, and then he has the wages that are eligible. Now, obviously, this was prior to his PPP being funded, so every dollar that he paid from basically the date is March 13th, really to March 31st, would qualify. And he has then here the total wages he's going to be using, and he calculated his 50% credit that he should be getting. In the second quarter, 4/1 through 6/30, he has his total wages that he paid the employees, and then what he's using for PPP, which then leaves this amount available for his ERTC credit in this period. So for the quarter then, he also says, because by the time you take what you've got in the second quarter and then you add what we have in the March 13th through 31st, he's going to have that number bundled together for his total compensation. Then he has his third quarter wages. Again, he has his total compensation. He has what he's using for his PPP forgiveness and what he has remaining for this quarter's Employee Retention Tax Credit. He has then, again, he's got a running total of this is what he'll have in this quarter, wages that were eligible from the prior quarter in the second quarter, including March. And so his total wages so far that he's used. And then he's got his fourth quarter. So yet again, he has his total compensation, what he needed for PPP forgiveness. Again, there's nothing remaining in this period that he needed. So his total wages could be subject up to the $76,839. Now what he's done as well, as you can see across the top, he's showing the total amount across the bottom, and 10,000 of course is the total max. So as you can see, even though this person earned 5,132, only 945 of that is allowable because prior periods they had the 9,055, and this brings the person up to $10,000. And then at the very bottom, he has the total compensation per employee up to the $10,000 max. So here you can see across what each person had up to that maximum. And so his total ERTC that he's going to get is $57,107 across those quarters. Now, one of the spreadsheets we did was for one of our own clients who asked us to actually calculate the PPP wages available and the ERTC available. So what we did was took their wages by period again and put it into a spreadsheet. And so we have March 13th through 31st, and across the top we had the employees, which of course we blacked out their names again. And in this case, this employee does not qualify because he's an owner of the company, and based on his ownership does not qualify. And everyone else, then we have their totals here. So here's the amount that would qualify for the weeks of March 13th through 31st. So they have $11,920.65. Then we have the second quarter wages. And again, this is the total that will be reported on the 941 X, basically. Well, actually, this is the total that they would have earned in the second period. This is what we're going to report on the 941X because there's a 10,000 max. So when we add together the March 13th to the 31st, as well as the second quarter to be reported, this was the total wage, yet 10,000 is the maximum. So again, splitting up between the second quarter and March, because we do have to split that on the worksheet, and then on the 941X, these are the two numbers that will be listed on there. And then we have the total compensation for the second quarter, total compensation for the March wages. So we will report on the second quarter 941X, the 37 to 38.70. Now, before I go into how I calculated the third quarter, I want to show you how I determined what wages were needed for the PPP. So what I did was I looked at the date that they were funded and the amount of their loan. And based on the wages that they had and what they needed for forgiveness, we determined that they can actually use all of their salaries in the second quarter towards the employee retention tax credit and start calculating payroll wages from the third quarter. When I calculated the 60% payroll required for the PPP forgiveness, that gave me $18,670.50, and the non-payroll allowed was $12,447. We did make a list of the non-payroll expenses, so basically their utilities and telephone. And as you can see, that's more than what they're even allowed out of the 12,000. They had 19,000. So we don't even need anything more than this, but we just also listed their rent amounts just for purposes of calculating what they actually spent in total during the covered period. So the PPP calculation that I did, I basically wanted to know what other payroll expenses would qualify, because again, we want to reserve as much of the wages as possible for the employee retention tax credit. So what I did was I looked at their workers' compensation. Turns out they actually had a refund in the covered period, so it was a negative balance, so I can't count anything at that point. But their state payroll taxes for unemployment insurance was $790.43, and that can be included. So the non-payroll allowed, again from my calculation before, was $12,447. The payroll allowed, that's non-wage, is the $790.43. So the actual wages that I needed in the period of July 1st through the end of the covered period was $17,880.07. The third quarter wages that we're going to be using is the $13,302.35. So we needed an additional wages of the $45,77.72. October 1st through 19th wages was the $4,035.60. So what we wanted from the third quarter was basically we needed another $542.12. I calculated what I was using from one of the employees in the third quarter, and I'll show you that calculation in a minute. But I was using $4,041.32, and then from other employees, the $542.12 total. So when I go back here to the employee retention tax credit, so what I did was I looked at, for this employee, we had $4,048.88. All of that could have been used for the employee retention tax credit, but we wanted to reserve most of that to go towards the PPP forgiveness. So all I used in this quarter for him was $7.56. So this quarter has a very low amount of wages that we have used, and that was the $9,261.03. In the fourth quarter, though, we go back and we're able to pull what he had. So we added what we'd used in the past to this $7.56, and that left us what we were able to use on the 941X in the third quarter. So then at the bottom here, you can see the total amounts that we're allowed to use for each employee. And then we ended up taking out portion that this is what we could have used. We took out a portion for PPP forgiveness, so we ended up using $60,223.75 of the wages in these periods for the Ertc, and the remaining amount went towards the PPP forgiveness. Okay, I hope that helps you understand just a little bit of how you want to take your wages and determine what you need for PPP forgiveness and what you need for the employee retention tax credit. A lot of the customers that we've been helping, we have found that they are able to start with the third quarter for PPP forgiveness and use all the wages up to the 10,000 max per employee, or excluding, of course, any owners that own more than 50% of the company, for that employee retention tax credit. If you have additional questions, feel free to reach out to us at contact@abandp.com or 310-534-5577. Again, if you need the worksheet to calculate your totals for the quarters, feel free to reach out to us for that as well, because that will help you calculate the numbers that you need to put on the 941X. Okay, I hope you found this helpful for you to complete your ERTC and PPP wage calculations. And again, if you have any additional questions, feel free to reach out. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.